Ever get that feeling where you're like really trying to understand something super complex
Yeah,
and you just want like the key takeaways without having to dig through tons and tons of detail?
absolutely.
Well, that is exactly what we're going for in this deep dive today. You sent over some really fascinating stuff about Benin,
Yeah,
a country with, you know, a strong agricultural background,
right.
and they're making a pretty ambitious shift.
It really is. What's happening in Benin with the Glo-Jigbe Industrial Zone, the GDIZ, is fascinating.
GDIC.
It presents a really compelling model of economic evolution in West Africa. You shared these articles with us, and you also sent over information directly from the GDIZ website.
Yes,
And it paints a picture of a very deliberate and multifaceted strategy.
it really does. And I think that's what caught my eye too, is that it's not just like, hopes and dreams.
Right.
This is an actual plan being put into action.
Absolutely.
So for you listening who were intrigued by Benin's kind of industrial push, our deep dive today is all about understanding how GDIZ is structured to drive this transformation
Yes.
and why it stands out as such a significant development in West Africa.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Where do you think we should begin?
Well, let's look at how the GDIZ came about.
Okay.
The establishment date was February 5th, 2020.
Okay, so pretty recent.
Yeah, relatively recent. What's interesting right from the start is it's a public-private partnership
Oh, interesting.
between the Republic of Benin and Arise Integrated Industrial Platforms,
Arisea?
Arise IP. This type of structure often seeks to combine the long-term vision and stability of government, with the agility and efficiency of private enterprise.
Right, that synergy is key.
Yes.
And like you were saying before, the sources really highlight a central driver for GDIZ.
Yeah,
It's to build on Benin's existing agricultural strengths.
absolutely.
So when you think about, some of their key crops, cotton, cashews, pineapples, shea nuts, soybeans,
Soybeans, that's right.
the strategy isn't to abandon this foundation, but to add significant value
Right.
by processing these resources in Benin itself.
Exactly.
That farm-to-fashion idea for cotton really captures this.
Oh, it's a powerful illustration. It's about moving up the value chain.
Yeah.
For a long time, the economic benefits of these raw materials were really realized elsewhere.
Yeah.
By focusing on processing these locally,
Yeah.
Benin wants to capture those higher value stages of manufacturing
Right. Yeah.
and reduce their reliance on global commodity markets, which, as we know, can be volatile.
Yes. Very volatile. And the location seems really smart.
Yeah.
45 kilometers from Cotonou, Benin's economic hub.
The economic capital.
That proximity, that has to offer some significant advantages
Oh, for sure.
in terms of transportation, access to markets.
Absolutely. And the scale of the land allocated to the GDIZ is massive.
It's huge.
It's designed to accommodate a diverse range of industries. It really signals the magnitude of their vision.
It really does.
A purpose-built zone allows for these interconnected industrial clusters.
Yeah.
This helps foster efficiency and collaboration.
Right. And all works together.
It all works together. And this leads us to one of the primary sectors they're targeting, transforming the textile industry.
Now, this was really interesting to me. Benin has this goal of becoming a textile powerhouse.
It's ambitious.
It is ambitious.
Yeah.
And, considering their history as a significant cotton exporter,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense to want to bring those processes in-house.
Yeah.
The spinning, the weaving, the garment production.
It's like they're saying we've been growing the wheat, now we're going to bake the bread.
I like that. That's a great analogy. Highlighting the untapped potential Benin has. And to show how serious they are, they've committed $550 million in investment
Wow.
for the textile and apparel sector. That's a substantial financial commitment. It suggests a long-term perspective.
It really does.
Yeah.
And the design of the textile park within the GDIZ,
Yeah.
it sounds incredibly strategic from these sources.
Woodulin.
So it's being set up to support both large vertically integrated operations
Okay.
and smaller, more specialized businesses.
So they're thinking of everybody.
Exactly. And they're ensuring that there's readily available land with all the necessary infrastructure,
Smart.
like high-quality infrastructure, which would be a major draw.
Oh, yeah. This concept of plug-and-play infrastructure is really appealing.
Plug and play.
Readily available power, water, connectivity, all within the zone.
This is all right there.
Right there. It significantly lowers the investment hurdles for companies of all sizes.
I see.
They can focus on production
Right.
rather than dealing with the complexities of basic infrastructure.
Yeah.
But it's also worth noting that GDIZ isn't just focused on textiles.
No, not at all. And that's what I thought was so interesting, too, this move into electronics assembly.
It's very forward-thinking. They're recognizing the global shift towards technology, the growing demand across Africa. They want Benin to be a part of that supply chain.
Yeah.
This diversification is really about building long-term economic resilience.
Right, because if you're overly reliant on one sector,
Exactly.
things can go south.
Exactly. By venturing into electronics, GDIZ demonstrates a real understanding of these global trends. And the incentives they're offering,
Yes, the incentives. Tell me about those.
very compelling. Duty-free importation of machinery and equipment combined with tax holidays.
So for our listeners who are familiar with business development,
Yeah,
these incentives, these are a big deal.
huge. These measures directly address major financial considerations for companies deciding where to set up shop.
It makes it much more attractive.
Lowering upfront costs, reducing the tax burden early on, Benin becomes much more competitive.
Yeah, yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Now we have to get back to agro-processing because that's a central pillar.
Of course, the advancement of agro-processing. This brings us back to Benin's roots.
Right, right. Agro-processing feels like the logical next step
Absolutely.
to maximize the value of their agricultural output.
Instead of exporting raw cashews, process them into finished goods ready for market.
Right there in Benin.
Yeah,
Pineapples, shea nuts. It's about transformation.
exactly. And the benefits, they're multifold. It increases the value of Benin's exports.
Yes.
It stimulates growth in local businesses. It potentially provides higher and more stable incomes for farmers.
Right, right.
By processing these goods domestically, they're essentially creating new industries, new jobs. For those following along, this is a textbook example of leveraging natural resources.
Exactly. And that really highlights why these incentives are so crucial.
Yeah,
Duty-free importation on machinery, raw materials, it directly reduces the cost of doing business.
massively. Significant reduction in capital expenditure, that can be a major barrier. It allows them to invest more in other areas, workforce training, product development, and the tax holidays. A critical window for these enterprises to become profitable, to become sustainable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It gives them a breathing room, a chance to establish themselves
Exactly.
without the pressure of those big tax liabilities right away.
And when you add in access to the ECOWAS market, a consumer base of over 300 million people,
Bro,
the potential for scaling up within the GDIZ, it's massive.
it's huge.
The economic community of West African states market offers tremendous growth potential for businesses there.
Yeah.
It's a major draw for investors who aren't just looking at Benin domestically, but the whole region. And speaking of,
Yeah, speaking of the economic impact.
yeah, the anticipated impact of the GDIZ appears to be substantial.
The numbers are impressive.
$1.4 billion.
From the first phase alone.
That's a massive influx of capital into the Beninese economy.
Huge. And the goal of creating 300,000 jobs by 2030,
Yeah.
that could have a transformative impact.
On employment rates, skill development, it's big. These projections suggest a significant potential boost to Benin's economy, not just financially, but in terms of human capital development.
That many new jobs, that could have a ripple effect throughout the entire country.
And it signifies a need to invest in training and upskilling the workforce.
Right, right. They have to be ready. But like with any large-scale industrial project, we have to be realistic.
Of course, a balanced perspective is crucial.
The sources did mention some challenges,
Challenges.
inherent challenges with projects of this magnitude,
Yeah.
sustainable development, maintaining high environmental standards.
It's a valid concern. Large-scale industrialization raises important questions about environmental impact,
For sure.
social responsibility.
And the communities surrounding these new zones.
Ensuring that the GDIZ operates with these high environmental safeguards
Yeah.
fosters positive relationships with the local communities,
That's essential.
essential for its long-term viability.
And this is where strategic and adaptive planning comes in,
Yes,
along with sustained investment.
not just financial, but in infrastructure, human capital development.
To effectively address these hurdles.
Overcoming these challenges will require a long-term commitment
Yeah.
to careful management, continuous improvement. But if Benin can address these aspects successfully,
Yeah.
the long-term vision of the GDIZ, establishing them as a significant manufacturing hub in West Africa, it's achievable.
So, for you listening, let's do a quick recap. The GDIZ is a very strategic initiative
Benin.
to leverage their agricultural base and build a more diversified and industrialized economy.
It's comprehensive,
The emphasis on adding value,
particularly in textiles and agro-processing,
that's key.
and the diversification into electronics
There's foresight.
shows an awareness of these global shifts.
And importantly, the incentives.
Yeah.
They're designed to attract that investment.
To make this vision a reality.
And the potential for economic growth and job creation is huge.
It's about reshaping Benin's economic trajectory, strengthening their position in the West African economy, linking their agricultural strength with new capabilities. It's remarkable.
And that brings us to a final thought
Okay.
for you to consider. Benin has a long history as an agricultural nation.
Right.
What are the wider implications, both for Benin
Yeah.
and for the region, of this push towards industrialization?
That's the question.
And as they build this new industrial foundation,
Yeah.
what other sectors might emerge?
It's exciting to think about. The success of GDIZ could have significant ripple effects,
Across the whole region.
inspiring similar initiatives in neighboring countries.
Yeah.
Fostering greater economic integration within West Africa.
More opportunities for trade and collaboration.
Exactly.
Well, we really appreciate you bringing these sources to our attention.
Of course.
This was such an insightful deep dive into something that has the potential for a real impact.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.